On behalf of the Early Childhood Education Department and the Office of Career Services, I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome you to Goodwin College. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and your lives to join us here. I'd like to offer a warm welcome to all of our guests and students tonight, as well as extend our sincere gratitude to the panelists and distinguished guest speaker for being here. Looking around the room, I'm overcome with admiration and respect for every single person here, because every single one of you in this room has dedicated your life's work to helping children. Each person on the panel represents a different career trajectory, each one critically important for the development, education, and safety of our children. Tonight, we will be hearing from professionals who carry out this life's work in a variety of different ways, but an underlying theme will be their genuine love and compassion and dedication to young people. For many, a job in this field is much more than just a job. It's a mission, a calling to teach, nurture, and care for children. Many of our Goodwin students here tonight will soon be making important decisions regarding their career trajectory and path. I know that this panel will inspire and inform you about some of the many avenues that you will be able to pursue once you have earned your degree. These panelists' careers and experiences will motivate you and help you to understand the many options for growth that you have in this field. Thank you again to everyone for coming. And now it is my distinct pleasure to welcome our guest speaker. Commissioner Beth Bye is the Commissioner of Early Childhood Education for our great state of Connecticut. Commissioner Bye has an extensive background as a champion for the children of this state, advocating for the highest quality of care and education for all children. She has also been a great friend to Goodwin College. You will find her background and message inspiring, and it is my pleasure to introduce Commissioner Beth Bye.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me, or is this is for the camera, right? Hi, camera. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Hi, my name is Beth Bye, and I'm so happy to be here tonight, and I'm happy to be here with this great panel as well. I'll be listening to some of what they have to say. I'm spending dinner here with you. I spent lunch with the Yukon Law Women's Association talking about women in leadership and telling a little bit of my personal story. And what it came down to, I told them when I started that I spent 13 years as a toddler teacher and 13 years dealing with parents of toddlers and really trying to figure out, how to do that best. And as a teacher, you all know, and you've done student teaching, you make mistakes every day. But I came into early childhood. I went to college as a biology major, but there was a daycare right at the bottom of the hill. And I was putting myself through college. So when I got to the bottom of the hill, I said, "Are you guys hiring?" Because I'd always worked with children babysitting and stuff. And they said, "Sure." And back then it was Durham Infant Center, and it was a parent co-op, which was teachers worked right next door to parents. So we were doing social justice work. We were working so parents could go to graduate school because it was on a campus, and so parents could go to work. And one of the great things about starting in a parent co-op is you don't get that negativity about parents that can creep into childcare centers. It just didn't happen because there was always a parent on the floor with you or in the next room. And I think that I've really carried that with me as an early childhood professional, that the parents are so important. They want to be there with you. They're not your enemy. We're trying to both support them as they're going to work and support them in raising their child, because they really look to us for advice. So being a toddler teacher, there are certain things, right? You got to give kids choices. When they don't like the choices, you got to find alternatives that are appropriate. You have to give them a lot of warnings about what's coming next. And you have to set clear limits. And I think a lot of those sort of skills come in as a leader. I am so excited to see so many of you thinking about going into early childhood because as young people, you can be leaders very young in early childhood. It's not for a good reason. It's because we have a lot of turnover, but I'm looking at Martha Wiley. Martha, how old were you when you were first a director?
I was 28.
28. She was the childcare director. I was about the same. I think I was 28 when I came to Trinity, and that was about when we met each other. Yeah. So at 28, you're responsible for $500,000 budget. You're responsible for, I had 100 kids. You probably had 60. Summer camp budget. And because you're young, people give you a break. They think, oh, well, they're young. They're going to make a mistake. So I made a lot of mistakes, but I think I had a lot of understanding because I was young. And so when you go into early childhood, because there's a lot of turnover, you actually have a chance for leadership, and you have to sort of see that as a positive. If there are some jobs that actually pay very well, if you get a job in the public school, if you get a job at a hospital-funded center, you have to look for programs that have other things supporting them, like some corporate childcare centers pay better. There are ways to look for that. So I worked at that Durham Infant Center, then I became a director, and then I was also I built a couple of magnet schools, built Wintonberry Early Childhood Magnet, working with the Bloomfield Public Schools, and also the School for Young Children in West Hartford, and the School for Young Children on Asylum Hill. So again, very young, able to have an influence on building schools. There's something else I was just going to say. I'm trying to think what it was. Give me a second here. So I know what it was. So as commissioner of the Office of Early Childhood, I was appointed by Governor Lamont to work on the system that does a number of things. And I think it's important for you to listen to all the jobs in our office because they all require some early childhood education. The most people we employ are in our licensing division. So those are people who go out and inspect childcare centers. How many of you know about childcare licensors? I know this will surprise you, but I think, and I think Haley would back me up, some of the best morale in the office is around the childcare licensors. So they're out on their own inspecting programs, but I've gone out on inspections. They're also always in touch with their peers when they have a question. They're always in touch with their supervisor. They really have little teams. And I think they feel like they're really keeping kids in Connecticut safe. And they also get to understand what quality looks like, and they can help our office understand that. So those are pretty good jobs. Those pay between $35,000 and $55,000 a year. And if you work for the state, you get really good health benefits. So those are good jobs, and the supervisors make more, and we have a number of supervisors. So that's also a part of our agency that has a nice career ladder. And the other jobs that we have is we oversee home visiting for the state. And so there's some in our office, which would be the same kind of jobs I just talked about with good health benefits and a job with the Office of Early Childhood. But we contract with probably, how many, Haley? Like 56 different nonprofits have home visitors. And that work is really special. If you enjoy that work with one child and their parent, or two children and their parents, that's a kind of job where you go out to a home and you sort of assess what's going on and offer supportive advice to the parents and link them to resources. This sort of a combination of child development, or you have child study here, and social work is sort of combined into one. So there are a lot of nonprofits that do that work for us. I think those jobs are fabulous. The other jobs we have are, we run Birth to 3, which is a special ed preschool program for children birth to 3. And those jobs are going out, physical therapists, occupational therapists. Some of you may take the next step here and do something else. Physical therapists, occupational therapists, early interventionists. There are some coordinators service coordinators for the children. And the cool thing about home visiting and birth to 3 is that you really have that impact on the parent, because when you have a child as a toddler, say for a year, I think you have an impact on their brain and on how they think and how they approach things. But when you have an impact on a parent, that stays with that kid for life. So I think those jobs are really great jobs. The other jobs we have in the office are, we also We also are working on building a quality improvement system. So there'll be like 6 agencies around the state that will be helping programs improve their quality. And they need things like raters. Have any of you in your classes looked at the ECHRs or the ITERs or classroom assessments? Well, we're going to need people in the state that know how to do that and who are reliable on that tool, who can go out and help us identify quality or not quality. So this is a program actually that we're going to be building up over the next 3 years. And so every year, I mean, it's going to be about probably putting about $6 million a year into the system. And each of those regions, they're going to need to hire people to go in and support teachers in classrooms and help teachers in classrooms. It's good. If you're a teacher in a classroom, it's good because you're going to have someone come in and help. And if you're a helper, you get to be in a lot of different settings. The other kind of jobs I think that are interesting are DCF has a program called the Early Childhood Consultation Project. Have any of you heard of that? That's for, you've probably seen some of this. One of the challenges right now teaching is there are more kids who are sort of out of control, very difficult to contain. You do everything you can, right? You work on the environment, you bring in an extra pair of hands, you have someone observe, try to help, you work with the parents, you work with the kid, but all your early childhood skills don't work, right? You need more help. And so there's programs across the state that bring in people who have expert training about the social emotional learning and kids who've experienced trauma. I actually think that's one of the most interesting career fields that is going to be growing. Because I have seen, like, I ran programs for 30 years altogether, and I thought I had it down. But there were still always kids who, even with my best teacher, my best assistant, me, observing, giving advice, we couldn't help the child as much as they needed. But then people would come in with very particular training around working with kids with trauma, and they worked with the parents, worked with us, did a home visit, and literally change that child's life. I mean, because if you can't get a handle on it when they're 3 or 4, that child's going to have a pathway that's troubled forever. But if you can get a handle on it and the parent gets a handle on it, that's really helpful. So I just wanted to let you know, those are the kind of jobs in our office. I have loved my career in early childhood ed. So I worked in early childhood ed, and I talked to you about how young you could be a leader. The only reason I was a state rep and a state senator is because of early childhood, because the wages were so low that I worked with other teachers, and we formed a group called Worthy Wages. We did a strike in Stamford. We came up to the Capitol and said something has to change. And I walked in that Capitol building and was like, whoa. And the first year, we couldn't pass the bill at all. We tried to pass $500,000 to have preschool in 11 cities in Connecticut. Didn't pass. I was up there representing the Worthy Wagers. The next year, because of a couple of things, Clinton passed welfare reform, and Connecticut lost a Sheff versus O'Neill lawsuit, and the legislature needed to solve the problem. And they say, we don't want to do busing, so what could we do? Well, kids in the lowest income cities hadn't had preschool. Only about 35% did. So the legislature said, we'll do preschool. And so one year they couldn't pass $500,000. The next year they passed $40 million without a single dissenting vote. And that started the Connecticut School Readiness Program. Have any of you heard of school readiness? Yeah, that's how it started. It was a response to Sheff and welfare reform. But imagine, as I was like 30 years old, and all of a sudden I was part of a group of women. There must have been like 40 of us, Kathy, wouldn't you say? I'm looking at Kathy Gavin. There were like 40 of us working on it. We had like 5 subgroups, and we tried, working to get the language in the bill around. I was trying to get improved wages in the bill. We didn't get that far, you can tell on that, but we have made progress in other places. So then I was hooked. I just thought, this is the place to be. And the reason I got involved is my own daughter had 11 different infant toddler teachers that I was like, this is too much. We got to do something. We've got to try to shore up that workforce. And now as Commissioner of Early Childhood, it's like we've come full circle. We made progress in the wages for about 10 years, and then it's really flattened out. And I think my first job as commissioner is to figure out how to get the wages up, because we have a system on the brink. And the first proposal we're making is to increase the infant toddler rates by 40% per child for kids who get care for kids in centers, and increase preschool rates about 20%. So, because program directors would very much like to pay their teachers more, but if they're not getting reimbursed at a fair rate, I know, like Martha Wiley runs a school, has some school readiness students, and you have to fundraise to pay for the kids to come to you. So you lose money when you take a child that's funded by the state. So it's hard to pay your staff if you're losing money per child, right? As well as you would like to. So that's how I got involved. And then I'll tell you two more things, because I was torn tonight. I didn't tell you my whole personal story. Haley said that was good at our staff meeting, but I know I'm also supposed to tell you about jobs. But you wonder, how does a daycare director run for state senate? Like, how does this happen? Well, it happened because after I got that taste of what it felt like to pass a bill like that, I moved to West Hartford, and I moved to a district where it was a magnet school. And I wanted my kids to be in a diverse setting. But the year after we moved there, the school board chair said, we're going back to neighborhood schools. And I knew what that meant. And it wasn't why I had moved to the community. So I fought with other mothers to say, no, we want to keep the magnet school. We want to have the choice to pick a magnet school and to have our kids have a more diverse program. And ultimately we won. And when it was over, someone said, well, you should run for school board. I was like, I don't even know what that is. I wouldn't know where to begin. This is what we know about women. They don't run for office unless they're asked. So I ran, and because I'd had thousands of parents and children over my career, I started out with a head start, and I got the most votes of anyone in town. So I didn't want to be chair, so I was vice chair for 5 years. And I thought that might be it, but today I told the law students that I did this whole talk about giving people the benefit of the doubt and staying calm for the kids and greeting them with love and all this. And then I told them how I got into public office. It's always because I was angry. So that's how I got there. Then I went back to the Capitol because at the time I'm now married to a woman, and I was in a relationship with a woman, and they were debating civil union at the Capitol. And so I went down, I went in the galley, and I was sitting with all the other gay people up there saying, please pass civil union. We want to be able to have civil unions. And at the end of the debate, the guy who was my state representative, he stood up and he pointed at all the gay women in there, and he said, these people won't stop till they have marriage. And I was like, I was a white upper middle class girl from Greenwich, Connecticut. No one had ever called me these people. I had a lot of getting used to, a lot of learning that day. And I turned to the women I was with and I said, I'm effing running. He is not going to represent me. So I ran for legislature to try to beat him. That's literally how it started. And then, so I won that seat. It had been Republican for 26 years, but I just went door to door to door, and I had all my preschool people. And then I was not planning to run for Senate. But you know how there's been all this stuff about why women don't run or why women don't get elected. I can tell you a lot of it is just the entrenched systems. I don't know how your representation is in East Hartford. Is it mostly men or women, or is it 50-50? I don't know what it is. I think it's mostly men in East Hartford. I think it's Jeff, Henry, Saud. But anyway. The system is not set up for women. So I was a state rep, and I told you I wasn't really bragging, but it's part of the story. I had the most votes in town when I ran locally. And when the senator stepped down, I wasn't going to run. I'm like, well, I'm not going to run for Senate. I'm happy in the House. I like the House. But then the head of the town committee, which is a group that controls this, came knocking on my door one Sunday afternoon. Wasn't expecting her. I said, oh, hi, what are you doing here? We came to tell you that we're not with you. We're with him. And I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell anyone. I just said to her, that's okay. I'll primary. And so once I said I'd primary, the other person dropped out, and that's how I ran for Senate. But I only said I'd primary because I'm like, how the heck can you be with him? You haven't even asked me or talked to us. I'm a state rep. Why wouldn't you think of that? So both times I ran for the next step, it was because I was upset about something. And I do think, I think it happens with men and women too, but I think that women who end up running are driven by something sort of, they get upset about something, usually around, for me, it started around my children. First of all, worthy wages, because I didn't think my daughter should have the kind of turnover. And the second time, because of the schools, I wanted her in a more diverse school. And then after that, it was personal affronts. And I'll close by saying that, first of all, he was right. We didn't stop till we had marriage. And then my wife and I were the first gay couple married in Connecticut, which was only the second state to have gay marriage. So in the end, it benefited me. So that was my abbreviated story. But I hope that was enough information about potential jobs. And I'll give you my email if you ever want to contact me. It's beth.bye@ct.gov. It's pretty easy, beth.bye@ct.gov. If you have a question, you want to follow up, I'm happy to answer. And I'll put this down and listen to the panel now.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bye. So before we move on, just really quickly, most of you have used the QR code to sign into the Padlet. We're going to use this Padlet for the remainder of the panel discussion as a way for you, if you are feeling a little bit timid and you don't want to ask your question, you can post your question anonymously, and then Stephanie will be able to sort of facilitate it for you if you'd like to do that. Does someone want to practice by putting up Commissioner Bye's email address into the Padlet? Anyone? Yes? Okay. All right. We'll practice later. It's fine. Okay. So without further ado, we're going to move to the next phase of the evening, which will be our panel discussion. And it's my pleasure to introduce the Assistant Director for Career Services here at Goodwin College, Stephanie Hertz.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Commissioner Bye. It's a real honor to be here, and this is just an exciting opportunity to collaborate. I've been at Goodwin College for about 3 years now, and this is the first time that the Early Childhood and Child Study program has worked together with Career Services. I have another colleague here, Brett Gralla, who joined us about a month ago, so he's still observing and learning his way around, and thank you all for showing him being a great audience for him as well. So real quick, I'm going to introduce the panel. I want you all to know just real briefly what we do in Career Services. Have any of you been to our office before? Or at least know where we are? A couple of you? Okay, a few of you. We partner with the programs. We partner because even though many of you are working, and in fact, I'm proud to say that there's a 100% placement rate for students in the early childhood program for the last 3 years, at least since I've been here, you may not all be working where your heart is. You may not all be working in the job that you see yourself in when you graduate. That's why you come to our office. We will do mock interviews with you. We'll tell you about our stories and our journeys, because like Commissioner Bye, it was not a straight path. It was windy, and we want to share our own stories with you. We will help you feel prepped and ready for programs like this and for a career fair. And you'll see in your folder, there is a career fair next Thursday, so a week from today. And there will be a lot of organizations there, which we're happy to talk to you about, related to human services and early childhood. So if you have any questions, let us know. But that's just a brief introduction from me. What I want to do for the remainder of tonight, for about the next 15-20 minutes, is I want to give my panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves. I'm going to ask a few questions, but I also want you to either chime in through Padlet, or if you have a question, just shoot your hand up, because this is going to be a discussion. So let's start with you, Martha, and we'll just go down. If you could introduce yourself and say a few words about how you found yourself in this field of early childhood, and then if you don't mind, just passing it down.
Thank you. So my name is Martha, and I'm a director of a private nonprofit program in West Hartford. I've been there since 1991. And like everybody suggests, it's a windy path. I started off as a student teacher in early intervention when early intervention was brand new. And they paid off our student loans. So I worked with early intervention for about 1.5 years in Boston. And then I worked at a family co-op on the grounds of Harvard. And then I moved on to a preschool on Beacon Hill. And then I ended up in Wyoming running a ski program for children. And then I landed back here in Connecticut. So it is a very windy path. My degree is actually a dual degree in early childhood education and special education. I attended Wheelock College, which is now part of Boston University. And the experiences that I gained in every single one of those jobs brought me to where I am now as a director. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I've been there for 28 years and it's been a great gig. So every day is different. I think that's all you need to know about me.
There you go.
We'll be quick.
Yay. So my name is Eileen Candles. I'm a director for Kelly Educational Staffing and have been with Kelly for 35 years. I came in also because I was looking for what I really believe my company does. I was looking for a bridge. I was looking for a bridge to a job or a career path that I wanted. And the company I work for and the work that I oversee and do helps people find career paths that are meaningful to them. So I began with Kelly Services doing work, hiring people to work at Cigna or United Technologies or Pratt & Whitney, doing largely data entry or typing or administrative work that morphed forward through the years of computers and into manufacturing work as well as engineering, overseeing Kelly Law Registry. And then in the year 2000 here in Connecticut, we won our first contracts with school districts, providing support with substitute teachers and substitute paraprofessionals. It is flexible, part-time work. It helps make the ends meet for a lot of families, and it helps serve students. And as someone who loved being a student, loves now having daughters who are students, loves the partnerships that we have with the schools and the programs that we work with there's more than 50 of them, 50 different school districts across Connecticut that are both public, private, charter, and magnet schools. And again, we provide support that runs the gamut from paraprofessionals doing one-day work with a child, perhaps a child with special needs, perhaps helping a large classroom, or work for people being long-term substitutes where they're dedicating their focus to those schools. Doing that work helps many people get by or stay at home with their family, but have work when their family is in school, or explore a career option or a career change, or when they're retiring from being a full-time teacher, still keep their foot in the door a little bit and have some options. And for you as students, before you've graduated, you could be a paraprofessional and try out different school districts. So we have districts that are urban, districts that are more suburban, and it runs the gamut. And I love the fact that, like, when I came in to be a temp, and I never was a temp, I was hired to be a recruiter then from there. But when that story began, for me, it became a bridge. So like I said, the path, and like has been shared, the path can be very indirect. It can kind of be accidental. And for me, finding this company was accidental, but developing the career I have has been very intentional, always focused on helping other people, and now with a great love for helping education. So the person I'm next going to introduce is Danielle Beauregard. She works with me at Kelly, and she actually came to us to be a sub, but we wanted her to be a recruiter with us.
Yes, that is true. Like much of our panel, my path is also pretty windy. And much like Eileen, I actually kind of found Kelly by accident as well. As she said, I came to Kelly as a substitute teacher. I was fresh out of college with a history degree I had no idea what I was going to do with, but had kind of thought, oh, maybe I could try teaching. Wasn't really sure, but decided to take a chance and give it a shot. Turned out, before I could even get into the classroom, that was when Eileen and one of our other recruiters found me and decided I would be a great fit for their recruiting position that they had open. So I've been with Kelly for about 2 years now, and it has just been the best 2 years. Kind of like Eileen said, what we do is help people find meaningful work. To me, being able to see substitutes, people who have never been in a classroom before, who were kind of in the same position as me, trying something new, really nervous about it, to hear from people after they start their first couple assignments and hear how excited they are and about the impact the students have made on them, it's just so heartwarming. And it really does, at the end of the day, make me feel, like I've really done something and like I've helped a lot of people, both students and teachers alike. And like Eileen said, it's a great thing to do while you're in college because you can still get that FaceTime with the schools. You can start getting into different environments. You can try out different grade levels, different schools, different areas, and you can really have an opportunity to try out new things and see what works best for you and where your passion is and where really makes you happy as you're going through and finishing your degree, and potentially even able to tailor that to the things that you find while substituting. So I am so proud to be part of Kelly and what we do, and excited to talk more about it with you guys.
I'm Jane Morris, and never in my life have I needed a mic. So
It's actually for video for you.
oh, I would love to use the mic. Hi, everybody. So I am the director of Raymond Hill School. It's in part of Klingberg Family Centers. We are a school and agency that works with abused and neglected youth. The school is like first grade through 12th grade. We actually have a post-grad program, but you guys are all early childhood, right? Younger, working with younger kids. So at our agency, we have extended day treatment programs. We have foster care and adoption programs. I run the school. And so these are, I don't know if you've worked in a school or all of a sudden, or been a kid, and all of a sudden those kids that have struggled are no longer in that school. And so they're at a school like ours, where a public school will say, I have tried A, B, C, D, and E. We can't meet this child's needs. And so they'll call a school like us. And so Amy and I know each other a little bit. And she said, hey, you want to come talk to some people? And I said, sure. So we have there's lots of entry-level positions. So for people that maybe are interested in working with at-risk kids that have struggled, kids that all of my kids have witnessed or experienced something hard or scary. And when that happens, life changes. Your development sort of changes. And maybe you guys are learning about some of that, about the effect that trauma has on your development. And so a kid, when that happens, they manage things very differently. And so even all of us, when we're in a stressful situation, our desire is either to fight back or flee. As we're older and as we learn about things, we realize that we have coping skills and we learn other things. Well, my kids are still trying to figure that out. So we always need lots of people that can work either one-to-one or in some other capacity in the school. So I guess that's what I do. Here, you would also love to use this.
Sure. Hi, good evening. My name's Haley Scott. I also work for the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood, and I've been there about 13 years. And just like everybody else, my path was windy. So currently at the OEC, I work in the home visiting division. And we actually started off as the Children's Trust Fund. We were Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect. A few years ago, when state agency merged, we merged into the Office of Early Childhood. So within my position, I do grant management, and I also do fiscal management for our home visiting programs across the state, which has really been a great position for me. I'm also a family development coordinator within this role, and FDC is an 80-hour comprehensive course that really focuses on family development, and it's you can take it throughout the state. So where I started in this field was back in high school. I told my dad I wanted to go into social work, and my dad said, you can't go into social work, you have to go into business. I said, Dad, I'm a social worker. So I ended up in social work.
And I began at a community college as Nuntuck, and I was taking my human service classes and going through life. And then I found Springfield College, where I was going for my bachelor's, and I became pregnant at the age of 21. And I always had in the back of my ear, my dad telling me when I told him, he's like, Haley, whatever you do, just keep going to school. So I think I'm just a lifer because currently I'm in my doctorate program the last semester. Thank you. So I've actually done some really neat things throughout my career. And I was just telling Beth, I realized that my majority of my work has been with early childhood, even though I'll identify as a social worker. I've done a lot of early childhood stuff. So when I started off in the field, I actually was an FRC director in Hartford. Loved working in the city, loved working with the people. It was my passion. I was also telling Beth that I ran a summer program, and it was just amazing. I remember when I had the summer camp, all the kids would come. I had a AmeriCorps staff under me too, and we would just start off with music, and the kids would walk down and they would do this little dance. It was just a really cool feeling, and that was some great work. Some other things that I've done, I actually ran an ESL class. It was an early childhood component if parents wanted to open a daycare center. So I taught that at the Hispanic Health Center, and I did that for a few years. Kind of related to early childhood, I've taught counseling courses at Springfield College. I actually taught here at Goodwin College. I taught human service classes as well. And so that's basically my windy road to where I am today. Oh, one more key thing too is that, related to early childhood, what you could do too is, when I'm in my doctorate role, I'm also a therapist. I work with eating disordered clients. In my dissertation, sorry if this sounds boring, but it's around, I'm actually interviewing parents who've gone through the recovery process with their child who's an adolescent. And I'm looking at how their recovery process looks at home. What are they doing? What techniques are they taking from a family-based therapy and implementing within their household? So that's really been a cool experience. I actually got to interview the parents. I get to do this thing called coding and see where, things are happening and things like that. So that's been a great experience. And so that's me. Thanks.
Thank you, all of you. I really appreciate you sharing a little bit of your own story. Before I move forward with some of the questions I have, I want to see if there are any questions so far from the audience. There's a lot that's been bubbling up. So, and if you could just state your name and then the specific program that you're in here too. Nice and loud.
I'm Keisha Reynolds. I'm Keisha Reynolds, and I am in my last semester of child study, and I teach infants and toddlers too. I've been doing it for about 5 years, but I know that at some point I want to be out of the classroom into a more like administrative management position. So I wanted to ask someone about their first year in a management position and how it felt to finally manage a staff, and if that was anxious for you, and what did you do to get over the anxiety and the complaints and all that good stuff?
Great question. Who wants to take that? Okay.
So when I came on as a director, I entered our school as a director. I did not rise within our school. And when I came on, almost every single teacher was considerably older than me. And when we would have to, I'd have a teacher retire and we'd have to hire somebody, I would only hire somebody younger than me. I was terrified when I was working, that first year was very scary because I hadn't yet learned the difference between management and leadership. And it took a number of years for me to learn the difference between being a manager. You have to be to work here at this time. You have to be in this space at that time. I need to have that lesson plan from you. And being a leader, where I try to take people to their next level and to help them continue to grow in their own career. And it was a learning process, and I had amazing mentors that helped show me how to do that. But man, that first year, I think I hid in my office a lot because it was overwhelming. I'm responsible for a budget. I'm responsible for a staff. I'm responsible for a building. And children. I'm responsible to children. So sometimes I'd sit there thinking, who let me do this? But I had a lot of patient people around me, and I learned from a lot of people. So it's overwhelming. It's scary, but there's absolutely nothing better in the world.
I do. I would love to talk. So sorry. I'll pass it on though. I so totally agree with it's not managing, it's leading. And when you can embrace that and understand that, but also know and have the humility to understand that all the people around you lead you to, and that you glean and learn and feed off of the knowledge, the skills, and the input that you give and get from each other, everybody succeeds. I've been so fortunate and so happy to love what I do, have the work ethic that my parents instilled in me and demonstrated, but leading by example is part of it. And when I first started, you can't believe it now that I was really kind of quiet and more introverted, but I was kind of really book smart and not street smart when I first started in a recruiting role and was promoted into management. I had the pleasure of working with a really smart, street smart girl from East Hartford, grew up in East Hartford. And together, we really were an incredible match. We absolutely fed off of each other's knowledge and then took that and turned our workplace into a successful place and into a place that also had a sense of spirit, fun, adventure, and success. And that then inspired other people around us. But it's always understanding and leading and doing by example and appreciating the other people around you and what they have to offer. And that, I think, overcomes any challenge.
And just one thing to add, because I am pretty fresh out of my first year of kind of a more management position, is, kind of to a point that was made earlier, sometimes when you are young and you are in charge of people or managing people who are much older or more experienced than you, in my position, sometimes having to counsel or coach substitutes who have been certified educators literally longer than I've been alive. And then I have to come in and tell them, we received this negative feedback from you. Let's talk about this. And that was something that didn't always go over well and something that is challenging. And one thing that I struggled with a lot at first was, when people would question me about my youth or my inexperience, was allowing myself to then question that too. So I think one of the biggest things that you have to learn in those first, year, and that I'm still learning in my second, going into my third year, is to be confident in what you know and to really not let that get to you. And that's not easy. Still learning, like I said, but that is a big thing, is to have that confidence in yourself, to not let people take that away from you if they are questioning that, because again, you're new or you're young in the role.
I think that one of the things that I've learned, and I love leading a school, and I've been a director. I realized that I probably didn't do it right. I was supposed to talk about myself, and I didn't do that. But I started in this position as a leader, but I was a teacher in another school, and then a position opened up for a principal position, and they overlooked me, and I wondered why. And they said, you need too much room. And in that facility, they would not be able to allow it because of the structure of the program. And so I was so angry, but it was actually the best thing she could have ever said to me. So because now where I am, I'm able to make all those decisions, and I have a lot of trust in people above me. And I needed a place to be able to spread my wings and do my thing. I try to never ask my people to do anything that I have not done or I would not do myself. I try to lead by examples and that I'm going to work as hard as you guys work. My door is open and people know that. And so being approachable, but it's really hard in the beginning, and you're going to, if you really want to work in education in a building position, in that kind of a position, it's a lot of hours. And I respond to phone calls at night, and I respond to phone calls on the weekend, and I work a lot. And that's reality. It's not just my job. If that's what you want to do, you're not going to have summers off. That's just, if that's what you want to do, and I do it, but it's a lot of work. Oh yeah, I mean, and I think the thing is that the key to being a good leader is to, number one, like, whoops, I made a mistake, and own it. Like, I could have done this better, or I wish I hadn't done that, and shoot, and in front of as many people as are around, because that's how you show that it's okay to make a mistake. The whole philosophy in our school with traumatized kids, it's a restorative model. And it's not about rewards or consequences. It's about fixing it. Whoops, I made a mistake. Fix it and move on. If I've hurt you with my words or my body, how can I make it better? And so that's what we do in everything. I could have talked to that parent better. I could have talked to that custodian better. I could have talked to that teacher assistant who's really overwhelmed in a better way. And so I try to model everything, but I ask, like, my phrase is, what do you think? What do you think? Because we could all make those decisions all day long without getting anybody's input. And sometimes I'm going to ignore that input, but I'll take it and then kind of move on. So I think any successful leader, another one of my phrases is, I'm only as successful as everybody around me, because it takes a village. And so so you're leading, and so you're appreciating and you're acknowledging, and you're learning those staff's name right away, and every kid, and you're greeting them in the morning, and you're responsive to parents' issues, whatever they are, as ridiculous as they may seem. You have to allow them to say it, whatever it is. And then maybe have a glass of wine when you go home.
So I actually started off being a director at 26 too. I was brand new, and someone told me, Haley, you got to fake it till you make it. And so I did. I really did. But what I learned too is that staff development is key. Right? So if you go in there and you're the queen and you're going to do this and that, you have to get on the ground. You have to be able to talk to parents. If somebody's out, you have to fill in, no questions asked. And you really have to build your staff up, right? And I heard you ask too, you were like, is this hard? You know what? You have to change your mindset. Okay. Someone told me once when I was young, I thought that, life was going to be easy. And I came across all these different struggles and things like that. And somebody gave me good advice, and they said, you know what, Haley, life is not easy. So now you know this advice, go on. And it was like transformational for me. It really was. And so, like I said, it's all about your mindset, right? You got to go in thinking the positive. You're going to do this. Did I ever think that I was going to be where I am at my doctorate program? No. If someone told me at 21 when I gave birth to my son that I would be getting a doctorate, I would have said, no way. But along my life, I changed my mindset, positive affirmations, everything you have to do. Sometimes I used to stick sticky notes in my car. You can do this. You got this, girl. When I was going through my clinicals, I was working full time, teaching 2 classes, and going to school, and I was doing my internship. So I wouldn't come home. I would leave at 6 a.m. I wouldn't come home till like 10 o'clock at night. And I had my son in high school at the time. And so was I tired? Yes. But I told everybody in my life that you had to speak positive to me. My mom She had one of those phones that, I think it was a flip phone, and she got a new phone and she was into emojis. I'm like, Mom, everything you say to me has to be positive. So she sent me like 20 emojis. I'm like, Mom, one emoji. So like I said, it's all about changing your mindset. I say do a positive opposite, right? You got to just change this and it will help you. And you got this.
One of the great things about being here tonight is how you're all thinking about what's next and you're keeping an eye on the horizon. It's really important when you're doing really hard work, because how hard is your work being in an infant toddler room? It's hard work. But you know that what you're doing now is important and you're keeping your eye on the horizon. I think there's so many different ways to be a leader. We've all had leaders. You've all had bosses. Some are like really tough. Some are responsive, some are not, but you learn different lessons from all of them. I think when you're first a boss, you keep all those bosses in your head who drove you crazy. And I know for me, I tried to be nice to everyone. I want everyone to like me. And I can do that. Like, I'm a politician, I get a lot of votes, right? I can make people like me. But you can't lead if you're just worried about people liking you. And so you've got to learn pretty quickly. There's this great book. It's so old, but it was my Bible. It's called Lincoln on Leadership. And he says, when you lead, you have to suffer unjust criticism. Like other teachers will say, well, they're really favoring that other teacher. You know, that's not true, but you can't spend your whole life trying to defend. You just got to move on. So you got to let things go and move on. If 10% of parents, if you're in a childcare program, if 10% of parents and 10% of teachers aren't upset with you about something, you're not moving anywhere. You have to have some people really upset with you. That means you're trying to change. You're trying to move things forward. I'm not saying for nothing, but you just get used to people being angry with you. And again, it was great training for being a politician, because people are upset with you and they make these assigned motives to you that just aren't true. But Lincoln on Leadership really helped me. I keep that up on my wall. Haley, if you come in my office, you'll see it. The other thing is, as a leader, you have to cherish your doubts. You have to know that you're wrong sometimes. Somebody already said that, but these things, it never leaves you. You're the center or where you work. When you're the leader, it's always on your mind. When you're in the shower, when you wake up, in your dreams. And when you have things that nag at you, you've got to pay attention to them. You won't know right away, but you're not always going to be right. So you got to really cherish your doubts. The other thing you have to be comfortable with, I know for me, in every place I've ever worked, I've always had some people that worked for me who were smarter than me, who were better at teaching than I was. They knew more. And you have to be comfortable that you're supervising people that know more and that you've got to take advantage of that. And how do you help them grow to the next step? And how do you want everyone a little bit uncomfortable. If you think those Lady Huskies are perfectly comfortable and happy every day to get to the level that they've gotten to, you know that's wrong, right? Like Gino has them on edge. You want to be a little unpredictable. I think like I've loved starting at the Office of Early Childhood, and I think like I'm a little unpredictable. So everyone's like, what's she going to do? Is she going to come down? Is she around? You want to be a little unpredictable. So be comfortable with that. The other thing is keep learning. There are so many great leadership TED Talks right now. And I read and watch Brené Brown all the time, because particularly women tend to have shame and doubt, a little more shame and doubt. And there are men that have shame and doubt too, but just as a group, we tend to have more. And she really helps you through that. I would say the other thing I've learned in my last 2 jobs, because I didn't have them for a long time, is boundaries. Is that I can let my job eat up my whole life. And my wife got very sick several years ago, and she's doing well right now. And it taught me the importance of boundaries, because I didn't know how long. I wish I hadn't had to have that lesson. I wish I actually had it when my kids were 11 years old. But you got to keep boundaries. You've got to, like in my new job, I have a work phone and a home phone. And so this is the first time I've done it, but it's to create boundaries that I put this away. And that's that, because otherwise, you know, you're responsible. And the other thing is mentors. You've got to have other directors who you're friends with. Like I could call up Martha Wiley and say, you won't believe what happened. How do I manage this? I had this friend, Judy Goldfarb, who just answered the phone every time I called. So I think there are so many things, but when you're, it's so exciting to be a new leader. And I think it's exceptional to be a young leader of a program, again, because you're young, you make mistakes, you experiment. When people go up through the ranks and they finally get to be the director, I think they want to do it perfectly and they're harder on themselves. Whereas if you're at the beginning, you're not so hard on yourself. It's like, oh, well, blew that one, move on. And what you said about mistakes, you admit mistakes regularly and in front of people, and particularly when they put other people out, because the mistakes you make often cost other people who work for you. So.
Thank you. So we have time for one or two more questions. Oh, they're up here? Okay, let's see. Okay, there's a couple questions. So let's start with this first one up to the left. My goal is to get into childcare licensing. Any advice on how to get into that career?
Well, write me an email, bethbye@ct.gov. Oh, write an email, but also check the website for state jobs, and they get posted. But we are hoping to expand our quality system, which will expand our licensing staff. And for example, I know there are going to be several openings in the next few months, and know that it takes a long time. The opening will be posted. It'll be 6 months before the whole thing is through.
You actually have another question.
Me?
What is in place now to help early childhood educators get better pay in the future?
Well, what's in place now is the plan, at least in state-funded centers, to increase the subsidy payment, which helps some, but it's not enough. Frankly, I mean, I hope that ultimately we have more public school classrooms, because I'll never forget supervising a teacher. She was one of the best teachers I ever supervised in a private program, who was making $32,000 a year after 15 years of teaching. And we took that school and it became a public school. And she had lost her husband and was a single mother. So imagine $32,000 trying to make ends meet. Then we turned into a public school, and the next week she made $72,000. And so I'm not saying it's right that the public schools pay more, but they pay more. So I think we need to look to get more public school preschool programs, and we need to look to get more funding for the private programs. Because right now, what the mother makes or father makes is what determines what parents can pay for childcare. So if parents are making $50,000 a year, even if it's worth it, they can't pay $15,000 or $20,000 a year for preschool, even if they want to pay that much for daycare. They want to give their kid everything. They can't. So we need other money, like town money, state money, federal money, corporate. I know the corporations, we were making so much progress. Martha will attest to this. And the corporations were opening childcare centers. And then they'd say, oh, we have to put these teachers on our pay scale. And hospitals, open daycare center, they go, oh, this person does as much as a nurse. We got to pay them like a nurse. And they have a degree. And so the wages went way up. And then this company came in and started to privatize and say, oh, Weyerhaeuser, let us take that off your hands. We'll build a daycare center for you. And then you won't have the liability. But then then the staff lost all the pay, and that was coming for a long time. And then it just went like this, just like, I mean, you know where the middle class went in the United States? To outsourcing. Colleges now outsource their cleaning. They outsource their like at St. Joe's, they still don't. So the people who clean at St. Joe's, their kids get free college. Same with the cafeterias. It used to be people on campuses and other businesses. If you worked in the cafeteria at Aetna, you're part of Aetna, and you got Aetna retirement benefits and health benefits. And so just think about all those jobs that went to companies who made their money by making people part-time, reducing their health benefits, working them just under the right amount of hours so they don't have to pay benefits. It's a real crisis in our country. And, people get mad at government, but companies have stepped away from a lot that they used to do in terms of supporting a workforce that was broader. That was pretty liberal to say. Sorry, that was a long answer to that.
Still appreciated. Any closing questions or comments? Anything that anyone here in the audience wants to share that they're taking away from today? Something that you learned from the panel or from Commissioner Bye that you're bringing with you as you look forward, as you round the corner towards graduation in the coming months and years? Take a moment. Yeah? Okay.
I learned from my question today, ladies, that you have to have confidence and make your mistakes. There's going to be long hours. If people don't like you, you're not changing. Ask questions. Yeah, leadership over management, and that's a confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to push back on one thing. Oh, do I need
Yeah.
anything?
And your name again?
I'm Keisha.
Can we give Keisha a round of applause?
The one thing I want to push back is that I'm always changing. And so you wanna be open to that, because things are different. Just like we're always learning, we're always changing, and somebody maybe that's worked with you or for you, or a parent or a child, is going to show you, wow, that's a better way or a different way, or wow, I never thought of that. And so I am always open to changing and learning and growing. And so be open to that.
Thank you. There's also a book out there called The Visionary Director.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember the author because I'm really bad at author names.
Wasn't it
Thank you.
Margie Carter?
Margie Carter. So there's a couple of editions. If you're thinking that you would like to become a director of a program, this book is amazing. Yes. Visionary Director. Second edition. Phenomenal. And easy to read. I'm really bad. Like if you put a lot of words on a page, I start thinking about, when am I going on vacation? If there's lots of cool stuff going on the page, I stay focused. So it's a great book. I highly recommend it. I'm sure your school library probably has it. Maybe. But it's a great way to kind of set your head straight on what it looks like, what it feels like, what it can be. So that's my recommendation for reading.
The other great book is Powerful Interactions.
Oh, yes.
And the coaching for powerful interactions.
But the other thing is that there's all kinds of fabulous. Oh gosh. The other thing is that there's a lot of part of being a good leader is having all of those other jobs in between. And so not jumping into that leader because you have the whole rest of your career to do that. So to learn about what it means to be that line person or that entry-level person, and because that's the other part of being a good leader is to know what it's like and walk in their shoes. And it's also, that's how you learn, by all kinds of different things. And that's how you rule things in and you rule things out. Like, wow, I love this population, or I love this urban or rural or whatever. And you don't know that until you're doing it. And so I also really, really, really recommend not jumping into being at the top and working your way into that, and to know what it is that you want to do.
Thank you. Well said. One last plug I want to put in something. I mean, this has been a thread throughout the entire conversation, but a book that I'm actually finishing up now is Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. Has anyone else got their hands on that? If not, please find a way, library, Amazon, we can lend it to each other, because she has such a powerful voice that I think will speak to everyone in the room about how we are always becoming the leader that we were meant to be. And we are always talking back to that voice of self-doubt that we may have had when we were 5 or 6 or 7 years old. And she talks about that trajectory. And so I've found that really powerful no matter what career you're in. And she actually was in education. She was in medicine. She, of course, is in politics and everything in between. But I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who came out today. Can we give our panel a round of applause?